Hello friends, my name is RagePanda1 and today we're back again with another leveling guide review. And today we're going to check out the first class that I ever actually played in this game, which is the Paladin. And I had a lot of fun playing Paladin, although I was playing in a support role, and I wonder if maybe some of that content would be interesting, looking at pairs of people to be leveling up and what skills work best for them, because for me, I was using a lot of my aura buffs and directing my build to match the fire build that my buddy was doing, and I was buffing up our fire damage like crazy, giving us some penetration, and it was really working out extremely well, and his defenses were not that great because I was healing us both so very much. So there are certain ways that different builds could shine better depending on how many people you're playing with. I am surprised and a little dismayed to see that we're using the Javelin here. I do like the Javelin skill. I think that it's going to be a good skill, but what I don't like is that it's better if I'm aiming it with my mouse, and I'm not good at playing mouse because I don't do it because I have a back injury that makes me not want to play mouse and keyboard. So there is a bit of a skill gap when you're switching to mouse and keyboard. It's just the way that it is, especially with a game that's click to move like this. Normally, I'm not a click-to-move guy, so I'll probably have to play it that way today, and we'll just see how it goes. We're going to be barely hanging on to our ability to stay awake in the early game because we are literally doing Rive and Lunge again, and I hate it, and I'm not even going to show it in the video. It's just Rive and Lunge. It works, but I hate it. As with previous Sentinel builds, they want us to find our experimental ward per missing health gloves so that we can take advantage of healing hands. The more it heals us, the more ward we're gaining, and of course that means we could put on Exsanguinous and all these other things that help us with that. And the build is extremely simple. Basically, when we get to level 20, we're going to be switching, and that's it. That's our one respec that we have to worry about, and I'm glad that we don't have to worry about them very much at all. The thing that sucks, the thing that kind of sucks here is that we're going to be spamming Vengeance, which is going to give us good healing and good return on our mana, but we're going to end up with a cooldown on our Javelin, which is not going to be super fun, in my opinion. It's possible that this build is going to play into the playstyle that I actually prefer, which is where I group up a bunch of dudes and then hit them with one big move, and they all die, and I keep moving on. The Javelin may work that way. It depends on the actual damage of this holy trail that they are talking about using, and I think that that's going to be good. I just hope that it's fun, man. Everything is extremely standard here in terms of gearing. Of course, we're going damage over time, ignite, and bleed, attack speed on the necklace, and more chance to ignite on the relic. I think that's exactly what they've had on all of the Sentinels so far, but if it ain't broke, don't fix it, am I right? Unfortunately, we are going to be playing offline on this character. There's some server issues going on today, and they are really not working out for me. It's really slowing down the leveling process quite a bit, and unfortunately, going in offline mode basically means I'm solo self-found. There's nothing in my stash. I have no tabs. I got nothing here. I've got this one with the bonus physical damage and melee attack speed just in case I want to shatter it later, but I probably won't. I probably will not. I'm just holding on to everything that I can hold on to right now. But you're going to get the experience of a fresh first playthrough because that's what this is going to have to be. However, I can still go in here to this silver ring that's 6% movement speed, great for leveling, and I can easily buy it just with the stuff that I've gotten beforehand. That 6% movement speed for, I think, 25 gold is what I spent on it, is extremely worth it. Extremely worth it. And if I had shards, and when I start picking up shards, I might put some stuff on that ring. We'll just see how it goes. Another 12 gold, I can get some lightning resistance, which there are parts in this game where that matters. 8 gold, I can get some extra health. You see, there's all sorts of stuff here that we can still get, even though it's our first playthrough. You still want to visit this first vendor, in my opinion. Ooh, child, we got a good item. We got our Sunrise Emblem that gives us the Ignite chance, and we've got increased physical damage on it. Let's go! Ooh, the solo self-found might just be way more fun, because I am enjoying this a lot. Even though I'm doing Rive and all the same stuff I've done a million times before, I'm having a lot more fun with it this time, and I think that the reason is because the gear that's dropping actually matters to me a little bit. Like this sword I just got, bonus melee fire damage, increased fire damage, it's got some stun chance, and of course some ignite chance, and we're also working on ignite chance with our relic, so that feels really good to have looted, especially because this slower mace is not very good. I did not want to have the slower mace at all. Now I don't have to. I also got a second ring that just happens to have bonus to damage over time on it, and that is something that we're looking for. And some gloves with some melee attack speed and increased critical strike chance. Now, my ailments aren't going to be using any crit, but the fact that my hits can do that is going to be really good. And we're starting to see our little forged weapons come out, so all in all, the build is coming along and I'm having a great time. Since I'm having a lot more fun playing Rive this time for some reason, I don't know why, I guess I'm just in that kind of mood, the hack and slash mood. I want to see how she's working against these bosses when we don't really have the gear for it at all. We do not have any kind of twinking going on, and actually, it's performing okay. It's not the best that we've ever seen by any means, but then again, I don't have the best gear. I think it's actually working out pretty good, and maybe, possibly, I've been too harsh on the Rive section of these Sentinel builds in the previous segments. I actually think it's not that bad. It's a little bit fun if you're into the hack and slash mood. That's right, our first unique. Come on, baby! And it's not really worth much to us, but we're going to put it on anyway because the elemental resistance alone makes this item worth using. It's a lot, and you need it in the early game. Another boss down and another unique in our hands. What could it be? The Kestrel. Some extra movement speed and chance for haste on hit. That's going to work just perfectly well for us. I'm happy to put it on. Very happy. And ain't nobody can complain that I'm putting it on because I'm solo self-founded this one. Deal with it, boy. I can't even make it up. The next boss also dropped a unique for me, and hey, we're going to use it if it's good. I don't need all this dexterity, but I do need the movement speed. However, while I was fighting the ads for that boss, I also got these boots that have extra movement speed on them, and that's probably what I'm going to use instead, because this has a total of 18%, and this one is only 11%, not quite as good. I'm still going to go for the movement speed. I've done the same thing with my rings, and with the movement speed here, plus the haste that I get, I actually am zooming when that haste procs. So that's great. Now, to be fair to the build here, we are in the very infancy of switching over into this Javelin move, and the Javelin move is cool, but it ain't doing nearly the damage that the other thing was. I don't know, it's alright. I'm just really hoping there's more than that, because that ain't doing it for me. It's a little bit slow and boring. I gotta wait 3 seconds in between javelins, and that is not blowing my skirt up. I should mention that there's going to be a bit of a switch in what I'm looking for on the ground now that we have got our Javelin unlocked, and that's what we're rolling with. And the thing that we can do is, normally we would hover over this center part where it says Javelin, and then we would see physical, throwing attack, strength, and dexterity as our scaling. That's all great. We want to use that. However, when you're adding in an extra effect like we are with this Holy Trail, if we hold Alt while we're hovering over that node, we can see what this actually scales off of, and that is lightning, fire, spell, and damage over time. Mostly here we want to be going for damage over time and spell damage, because both of those are going to increase the fire and lightning damage. We don't want to only buff half of the damage, right? So we're going to stick with spell or damage over time where we can find it, and this is supposed to be the main thing we're doing our damage with. That's what they say. So I'm going to build to make this particular part of it strong, and that's going to mean that we're losing a little bit in terms of our vengeance damage, which scales off of physical, melee, area, and strength. It's nothing even close to being the same as the rest of our javelins. So it's weird to me that we're doing some of our damage with throwing, some of it with melee, some of it with spell damage. It's hard to scale for all of those things. The best that I can do is try to make sure that I'm doing some damage over time with my weapon attacks and scale that damage over time, as well as scaling the damage over time effect of Holy Trail. Hopefully that works out, right? Now I have switched into a wand, which they're recommending, and got the rest of my gear as good as I could get it. It's honestly not good at all, but we can see that the damage is actually there now. It's doing the thing, and I'm pretty happy with that. I can just run and throw a javelin, and then if the stuff doesn't die, you know, I don't care. I never have cared. I ain't gonna start now. It's working out just fine, and I think that the speed of the build will be there. I'm just worried about boss fights at this point. But all you gotta do is line them up, aim it, and chuck it. It's not too bad at all. And when it's only one mouse click every now and then, I almost don't hate playing on mouse and keyboard. Let's just see how well we can kill a dragon, shall we? Most important thing here is to get as many javelins out as possible. And when we can't do that, we're swinging Vengeance, which feels a little bad, but we gotta do what we gotta do. And the damage is still kinda not there. It's unfortunate. This guy is a tanky boy. To be fair, he is a tanky boy, but still this is pretty weak damage. It might just be the gear, but I don't know, man. For actually walking through the campaign, though, and clearing, it's very chill. Got the chill vibes because it's once every 3 seconds you're throwing out an ability, and other than that, you're just having a good old time. So I'm here for that. I actually enjoy it a lot more than I thought I was going to. And I'm very happy for that. I just hope that this single target can pick up, because right now it is weak, baby, weak! Now, one thing that's nice is that you can get a line of dudes all grouped up here and just kill them all in one. But only if you're using mouse and keyboard, which, I don't know, it's working out alright. I'm not hating. I'm not totally hating. Maybe I'm just in a better mood today. I don't know, you tell me. But essentially, I don't mind letting a whole bunch of these guys group up together, like so. And then I just pop my buffs and kill everybody in one. You know? I find that to be fun. Even though the way that I just did it was a little bit slow, I find that to be very entertaining and fun, and I like doing it. So I'm going to continue doing that and having a good time. I'm very surprised by this one, I have to admit. I'm very surprised by this guide in general. I did not think I was going to like any part of it, but here we are, having a great time. Maybe it's all about perspective in the end, you know? I would be absolutely remiss if I didn't try to show this part where everybody's coming through the line anyway. And that's just easy right there. You don't even gotta think about that one. You just set it and forget it. You're having a great time. And then we come to the boss damage, which, to be fair, I do think that it's partially just my gear that's making it this way. But I want to show you a couple of points quick that we are going to get that's going to make a huge difference to this. So we're already working on it a little bit, but this Heaven Fire point that we're putting in, since we're using a shield, we're going to get a bunch of spell damage. Right now, I'm already getting more spell damage from that than I am from my weapon. So that's a little bit of a problem, obviously, but we're going to work through it and we're going to try to fix it and get the best wand that we can possibly get. Since I can't craft because I don't have any shards, I'm stuck with what I get. And right now, that is this Ritual Stake, which even when I got it was not the highest of a wand that I could get for spell damage, and it's increasing spell void damage. So I really need to get that replaced, and then we'll be doing a whole lot better. A whole lot better. Good old Admiral Hardon is about to meet his doom, we hope, but our damage is going to be a little bit low, and the reason is because we are right on the cusp of getting a new wand that is going to be just about double the spell damage. And I'm waiting for that to be able to invest into anything, and I think it's really hurting us right now a lot. So I'm not saying that our damage would be double what it is right now, but it would certainly be 30% more, maybe even better than that, if we actually had the kind of gear that we were looking to have. So we're being held back a little bit by the fact that we're playing in offline mode, but that's okay. It's part of the challenge, and it's not that bad after all, is it? We killed him pretty fast. We're definitely coveting all of these shards that we can find, and we've been really lucky in finding a bunch of uniques. However, those uniques have been things like the Claw, and they don't help us at all. I did get this Weaver's Will item, which you definitely should roll up. If you got nothing else, like I do right now, you definitely should roll these to see what sorts of things they get as an increase. This one, it's not that great, but it's got necrotic resistance, and it's also got +3 to all attributes. Some of the other things are a little bit helpful as well, but we're using what we can get right now, and we're sort of suffering for doing that. It is what it is. Once we get towards Monolith time, which we're getting somewhat close to, I'm going to spend every resource I've earned so far trying to make a set of gear that's going to function and get me through the monoliths. We'll see how that goes. So immediately I'm going back to town and I'm going to upgrade into this new wand, which is going to do considerably more than what we had before. We had 11 spell void damage before, which we didn't want. And now we have 25 spell damage. And this spell damage, when it just says spell damage, will turn into the type of damage that your skill is trying to use. So in my case, it'll go half into fire and half into lightning for my damage over time spell. Because of that, getting this spell damage and elemental damage and chance to ignite, all of these things that I had on my previous weapon would be great. And that's why I'm going to use one of my runes of shattering on this item. It's got a lot of different things that I want to get. I don't have that many runes of shattering. I could only buy 2 more if I wanted to. But this is going to give me a good chance of getting shards that I actually care about using. So that's why I'm going to use it on that one. Unfortunately, we got the shards that I least wanted, but they're still good. They're still good. I don't think I'm going to level up this weapon, though. I think I'm going to wait and try to get into monoliths and see where we're at, and I'll level up things when I need them. With these gold rings, I know that I'm going to keep them around for the purposes of resistances anyway. I'm not going to find better than this ring, so I may as well start putting stuff on there that's actually going to make a difference. As you can see, I have no spell damage and no damage over time shards. Life is rough in the streets, and since I don't have many shards at all, I'm going to actually use a Rune of Discovery here, and just hope that I get physical resistance would be great, and anything else besides that is also fine. Elemental resistance is not what we wanted. Endurance is also not what we wanted. That's unfortunate. That's unfortunate. I do have a Glyph of Chaos, but I don't have the shards to be able to do it right now, so I guess that's what we're stuck with. It's fine. We've gotten to the point where we're doing pretty considerable damage, so let's see against the tanky boy how it goes here. It's pretty much just holding vengeance until we can do a javelin, and that's the whole thing. The damage is starting to add up even though we don't have the best gear in the world, and I'm pretty happy for that, but we're going to need a lot more before monoliths, let's be honest. We need a lot more. There hasn't been much in this guide to talk about with respecs after we got our javelin. We've just been cruising along doing as they say, and that's been working out just fine for us. We're to the point of monoliths now, and I was able to do a little bit of tweaking on my gear. It's not perfect, obviously, because I had no shards to craft with or gold to reroll anything, but I consider myself pretty lucky. I did find this wand, which is essentially the best wand that we can even have right now. I don't know how I got that lucky, but it's the last thing that dropped for me, and I'm pretty excited. I do have this one big idol here, and it does give us a chance to cast Smite when we hit with throwing attacks. And since it's when we hit, if we hit a lot of people with our javelin when we throw it, then it will cast more than one Smite, and that can be very cool, very good. Unfortunately, our fire skill that gets left on the ground, our Holy Trail, is a damage over time skill, so it cannot proc things that proc on hit, like this 54% chance to shred armor. It would be great if I could be using that. I can't. It's not worth having this taking up all this space just for the Smite cast, but I don't have any other idols. I just literally have nothing else to put there, so that's what we're going with. I'm just glad that my resistances are somewhat okay, and we should be pretty much fine here, especially since Healing Hands is starting to give us some real crazy sustain. Last thing, I did change my movement type here, so that when I'm actually clicking on somebody, it's going to be doing Vengeance. And then I can just hold Vengeance on them with the left click, and I just right click as Javelin comes up. I don't even release the left click, and it just does the thing. So that makes that part of it pretty easy, and hopefully this monolith will continue to be pretty easy, like everything else has been. First monolith down, and I'm pretty excited about it. It went pretty well. However, I have noticed a severe drop in the damage compared to when I was doing campaign, and I suppose that's to be expected, although I thought that some of my upgrades were going to make up for it and make that not quite such an issue. I don't know if I got against a large pack of more health enemies or what at the end here, but I kept fighting them even though the echo was done, just because I wanted to see how I was going to fare in the situation. Now, part of the reason why I got so many dudes on me is because I sprinted across the map using Shield Rush and just tried to get to the objective somewhat quickly. I am lollygagging a little bit in this one because I'm testing out how my build is working. Since I have a whole new set of gear on, that's usually what I'm trying to do. But I can tell that if I get against a big boss here, it's gonna be rough, real rough. So hopefully in the next, I don't know, 13 levels or so, we get some stuff that really kicks up our damage a notch, especially on the single target. And hopefully we found some gear for some certain slots that are just absolutely abysmal. I have some absolute terrible pieces of gear right now, but it is what it is. You get what you get and you don't throw a fit, and that's exactly what we are doing here. An interesting note while we're watching this monolith go by, I am using my Vengeance skill here. It's not that useful on its own, but it does add some global damage, which is going to increase the damage that everybody's taking from our fire on the ground, And also, we're now to the point, after the monolith is done, that my healing hands is going to be proccing every single time I do vengeance. We're going to be essentially unkillable with that going on. I'll be able to stand in anything that doesn't one-shot me, and I'll be happy to do it, so that'll be fun. We got ourselves a lucky purple drop here, and I'm pretty happy about that. My shield was only okay. Now we're getting increased healing effectiveness. Obviously, that's going to make me more tanky when 100% of my vengeance casts are also doing healing hands. So that's going on for sure, but there's more to why that is actually a really good pickup. If we go into our Javelin tree here, every 5% of our increased healing effectiveness is going to give us +1 to our spell damage, which means we really want to stack our healing effectiveness as much as we possibly can here. It makes us extremely tanky, and it's one of the ways that we can get free spell damage on that trail that we're really trying to maximize. Right now, I have 168% increased healing effectiveness, which is actually going to equate to another 33.6 spell damage that I'm getting for that skill, which is the only skill that I really need the spell damage for in the first place. And to give you an idea of how effective that is, I'm getting 26 spell damage just from my wand alone, and in my passive points I'm getting another 30 from Heaven Fire. That one skill point, plus the shield that we just got, is giving me more spell damage than either of the other sources that I'm getting spell damage from. It should be a pretty good increase to our overall damage, and a very good increase to our overall tankiness. So here we are at the end of the mission with the final quests ahead of us. And I gotta say that the build actually turned out to be pretty good. I did it with mouse and keyboard the entire time. Never even bothered to try controller because I knew that that wasn't going to be great. And after leveling through this entire character, I can confirm that it's less comfortable for me by a long shot. So I'll be sticking with controller as much as I can. Although mouse and keyboard is pretty functional, and when it comes to these last bosses and the big tentacle boss in the early part of the game, I didn't have any of the issues getting melee attacks to go off that I normally do with a controller, so at least that's only a controller issue. I guess there's some solace in that. There were a couple very important nodes in this build as we went along, and they weren't super clear that those nodes are very much turning the tide for you as far as making this build come together. Heaven Fire is one of those. That's the one that gives you spell damage when you have a shield. And we come back around later to getting Sanctuary Guardian. That gives us even more spell damage with a shield. At this point, I have 12 points from that one and 30 points from the first one. So 42 of my spell damage is coming just from that. And then I have my 26 spell damage from my wand. And of course, I'm getting 33-ish from the increased healing effectiveness. And that's another one of the nodes that I think they should have put a lot of emphasis on telling you this is very important for your build, because all of our damage is coming from this holy trail, essentially. At least 90% of it is. And so increasing that as much as we possibly can is humongous, and one of the ways that we can basically do uncapped scaling of our spell damage here is by increasing our healing effectiveness. And since we're double dipping and also going into defense by doing that, it's an incredibly great stat to be building, and I really think that it makes the Javelin pretty fun here. But because this build comes with basically a skill that you get to use every 3 seconds that's doing all of your damage for you, you're left with a lot of time running around. And one thing you'll see me do here in these quests is that I'm running through a lot of enemies, and then I'm turning around and throwing javelins back through them as they try to approach me. And I do think that Shield Rush works a lot better in that situation than lunge, because you can shield rush in a straight line for as long as there's a straight line, and all of your attacks are wanting to be in a straight line anyway, so you just turn around and chuck it back, and you get a huge return on investment for doing that, and I think that's kind of a big deal here in this particular build. I did go for a little bit of cooldown reduction on my boots just to be able to do more of my javelin throwing, and I feel like that would be a good thing to invest in more heavily. However, keep in mind that what you're seeing throughout this entire video is me having basically no gear at all, with no crafting material, starting a completely fresh character. I did get pretty lucky with a couple of drops. My shield and weapon especially are pretty outrageously good, and I'm just amazed that I was able to make my resistances come together. always happy when that is the case. Because this build comes with a bit of an ebb and flow, you're doing a lot of moving around and then you throw a javelin and then you're doing a lot of moving around. I think this is a great build for somebody who's just learning mouse and keyboard, to be honest with you, because you get a bit of a respite after your javelin throws where you get to focus on moving and doing that well. This build also does not punish you for when you need to stand face to face with a boss. You can literally just stand there and tank anything. It's pretty wild. Obviously, Lagan is still going to one-shot you, so don't try standing there and face tanking that, but the amount of damage reduction that you're getting here is crazy. We're building a ton of armor, and we're constantly healing ourselves. And the really, really great thing is that you can just hold down the button for your Vengeance and just spam tap the buttons for your Javelin and Volatile Reversal and Holy Aura, and you're going to get all your buffs up and you're going to do a ton of damage. Now, if you really wanted to, you could time the cooldown of Volatile Reversal and make sure that you're putting up Holy Aura so that you get a little bit of that increased damage for when you're doing the extra damage with Volatile Reversal as well. I don't think it's that necessary. Just keep pressing them every time they're up. If you want to min-max it the other way, then feel free to do that. It's going to almost line up that way anyway. I don't think that this build is going to scale into the end game like crazy, and I could be wrong about that. I am not an expert of being level 100 in this game, as I've spent so much time leveling through all of these guides, but I don't feel like this is one that's going to scale into the craziness that we see with other endgame builds. I do think that it's a perfect build for somebody trying to learn the game, and somebody trying to learn mouse and keyboard, for instance. I think that you've got some really good stuff here that gets the job done. It doesn't require that much in the case of gearing. You should be able to pull it off just fine on your first character. And it's so forgiving and so tanky that you're allowed to make mistakes. And I think that that can be a very important thing, especially for a leveling guide. So in terms of being a leveling guide, I think this is one of the actual better ones, even though I don't think that the damage and speed is quite as good as it has been on many other ones. Now, I thought that I was going to absolutely hate this, and I'm just glad that I didn't, because I was doing mouse and keyboard and everything just came together. It just felt natural for some reason this time, and I am very thankful for that. Now, we've got 3 subclasses left that we need to dive into to test the Maxroll leveling guides, and that is the Falconer, the Spellblade, and the Beastmaster. So if you have any preference on that, if you're the first person to comment, I'll do exactly what you wanted me to. And a quick shout out to Kitra, who is the first person in Last Epoch who knew who I was. So that's cool. Thank you for the couple of kind words that you sent my way. And thanks to everyone who supports me in this channel. I really do appreciate it. It's very motivating to hear a couple of nice words now and then. So for now, I want to thank you for watching. I have been RagePanda1, and I will see you in the next one.